Hi folks, just doing a quick video on a problem I had with my solar panels, which might be helpful for somebody else who might be experiencing the same problem that I had. So my setup is very straightforward. I have two solar panels, so they're 120 watts each, which gives you 240 watts, 21 volts, which is 42 volts in total, and open circuit is about 7 amps for both, which is 14 amps. Now that's on a very sunny day. That's the maximum power you'll get from the actual solar panels, and obviously living in Ireland we don't get that, but that's the spec of the solar panels anyway. Now the solar panels are wired using a standard MC4 solar panel cable, and nothing special with that, it's just standard cabling. And I have them wired in series. So basically this is how they're wired up. One panel is wired to another panel, and then we have the two connectors that will go to the charge controller. So I'm maximizing having the two of them wired together, so I'm getting the maximum amount of power from my panels. Now the problem is that I had a major storm over here in Ireland. We had a major storm in Ireland called Storm Debbie, and basically what I did was it blew my panels. It flipped my solar panel frame that I thought was quite sturdy, and it flipped it upside down. A gust of wind came and flipped it upside down in the garden, and obviously it damaged the whole connection, the whole solar panel setup. But I didn't exactly know where the problem was, where the damage was. I had to do a process of elimination. So the first thing you do obviously is to change the diodes on the panel. I inspected the panel themselves and there was no cracking or damage on the panel itself, but I wasn't getting the output from the panel that I would expect. And so what I did was I went ahead and opened up the actual black box which you get on the back of the solar panel. So if you look here, there's a black box there. If you open that black box on the back of a solar panel, you'll get the diodes inside. Okay, so I had a look at the diodes and I didn't see anything blown, but I said, well, just to be on the safe side, I'll go over to Amazon and I'll order new diodes for my panels and put them in as a process of elimination. The other thing I also did was I temporarily replaced the existing cable that I had with a new set of cables, just to make sure that the cables didn't get pulled or stretched or broke or whatever. So there were two main things that you do when you inspect your panel and you find that your panel's okay. Then obviously you check your diodes and replace the diodes if need be, and obviously replace the cable as well as a process of elimination. The other thing I did, obviously, that when the diodes were replaced and I put the panels back up, I checked both panels and both of them said 21 volts, and it was, you know, the sun was very low, it's winter sun, but I was getting about 1.5 amps from both of the panels. And I said, right, okay, both of the panels must be working. But the problem was that when I wired one panel up to the charge controller, I could use my multimeter and check that the power was coming through, that was registering at the end of the cable. And on the good solar panel, I was getting 21 volts and the 1.5 amps. But when I disconnected one panel, the good panel, and I connected up the other panel, I wasn't getting anything at all. And I know the cabling was fine and the cabling worked because the other panel was registering using the multimeter, but for some reason the other panel wasn't registering, and I was kind of scratching my head thinking, what the hell is going on? Why isn't it registering with the multimeter? Because I know the cabling works. So after some investigation and a bit of testing and everything else, it turned out to be the MC4 connectors on the back of the panel had actually arcing damage on the connectors. And although I was testing the output using a multimeter at the panel, and it was registering and it was saying that it was fine, when I connected the actual MC4 connectors on the panel to the cabling and ran it in to my shed and tested it, I wasn't getting anything because the arcing on the MC4 connectors, the damage was causing a connection problem. So what I did was I cut off the MC4 connectors on the back of the panel and temporarily wired in the two wires into the cables into my shed. And when I did that and I put the meter on the actual charge controller, it registered. The moral of the story is that when you replace the diodes and when you replace the cable and you inspect the panel and the panel is okay, then the only thing that's left to do is to actually replace the MC4 connectors on the actual panel. It's a process of elimination, really. And so that's really the solution. That's my solution anyway. What I did was I cut off the MC4 connectors. Now I have to kind of wire them up permanently. For now my batteries were down to something like 27%, so I want the actual sun to charge them up for now, and when they're back up to 100% I'll put everything back to normal the way it was. But storms can really damage your panels, and that's what happened to me. Obviously there was a short with the cabling, there must have been some marking going on and they touched or whatever, and the power obviously shorted them out in some way and damaged the connectors. So just for everybody to know that that was the problem that I had with my panels. I did replace the cable, I replaced the diodes, and the panels themselves were okay looking. There was no damage on the panels themselves. So the solution was to replace the MC4 connectors on the panels, and that's what solved the problem. So if you have the same problem with your panels and you have the same issue, make sure you go through the process of elimination. Replace the cable just to make sure it's not the cable, replace the diodes to make sure it's not the diodes, and then if there's no damage to your panel, replace the MC4 connectors on the back of the panel. And hopefully that should solve your problem with your panels. I hope this helps. Cheers. Bye bye.